The man's violent behavior quickly attracts the attention of the police, but the police are puzzled by the man's actions. The man not only fails to cover his tracks, but he also hasn't erased any evidence yet. And this is not the first time such a case has occurred. On that day, bachelor David returns home from shopping. He was just about to put away his purchases, when a mysterious man breaks into his house. He grabs a hammer and strikes David. Then he confidently leaves the house. He doesn't even take the weapon with him. Shortly after, Detective William and his female assistant receive a distress call. Through their investigation, they find out David recently divorced his wife. David has a simple social circle and no enemies. There are also eyewitnesses nearby who saw the assailant. William drives away in David's car. Because this case is full of loopholes, William quickly finds the assailant's workplace. The boss says that guy's name is Jennings. He usually keeps to himself and doesn't speak much. He often sits quietly in one place. He doesn't seem like the type to have the courage to kill. However, he hasn't shown up for work in a long time. Shortly after, the police find David's car. There is a bloodstain on his car window. The bloodstain looks like it's smeared with ketchup. After a brief examination of the driver's seat, he enters Jennings' house with his female assistant. There is a psychology book on the table at Jennings' house. The book's content is related to treating social anxiety disorder. The female assistant also discovers bloodstains on the bathroom cabinet, and the bloodstains seem to have been there for a while. After collecting the evidence, they each go home. William and his wife look at each other in silence. The atmosphere between them is very awkward. It turns out that their marriage is in trouble. They have almost become the most familiar strangers. The next day, William goes to a hall. He interrupts a lecture. The speaker's name is Myers. He is the author of that psychology book. He claims to be an expert in overcoming social anxiety. Myers frequently holds lectures and seminars. So, William shows Myers a photo of Jennings. He asks Myers if this person has attended any of his lectures, but Myers says he has never seen Jennings. After Officer William leaves, a shy student named Ken approaches Myers. Ken asks Myers for autograph. Myers compliments Ken appreciatively. Myers encourages him to continue pushing himself. Myers tells Ken to strike up conversations with people. In addition, Myers invites Ken to attend a private seminar this week. Ken is somewhat intrigued by the offer. He tells his only friend, Jack, about it. Jack advises Ken not to attend the seminar. Jack suggests that Myers is likely a scammer, because of his high fees. Jack says that overcoming social anxiety is easy for Ken. Confidently, Jack takes Ken along to a nearby speed dating event. The purpose of the speed dating event is clear for both men and women. They engage in efficient speed dating, but Ken fails to connect with several women. They can't have a normal conversation. He can't even make eye contact. Ken has no chance of being a successful match. Seeing this, Jack comes over to taunt and mock. He doesn't really want to help Ken overcome social anxiety. He just enjoys seeing Ken embarrass himself. The frustration becomes unbearable for Ken, so he decides to attend the seminar. Poor Ken is unaware that the people at the seminar are actually in cahoots with Myers. They portray themselves as success cases cured by the expert. They collaborate to deceive Ken completely. At this point, Myers instructs his assistant to distribute beverages. The assistant follows the instructions. He specifically adds something to Ken's drink. Ken is completely oblivious. He thinks it's some kind of new therapy. He drinks the unknown liquid in one gulp. He is too eager for normal social interaction. That's why he doesn't think much about it. The drug drink takes effect quickly. Ken's vision becomes blurry. Everything around him becomes distorted and blurry. At that moment, the assistant pushes Jennings forward. Myers picks up a power drill. He drills a hole behind Jennings' ear. Then he extracts an unknown worm. Ken wants to escape, but the drug leaves him weak. He can't move. Ken can only watch. Myers inserts the worm into his ear. When Ken regains consciousness, he finds himself back in the apartment. He quickly runs to the mirror to check. He realizes his ear is undamaged. There are no visible scars, but Ken feels extremely unsettled. He tries to use tweezers to remove the worm, but even after poking his ear, he can't succeed. Ken has no choice but to return to the seminar and confront Myers, but he finds the place deserted. Ken finally realizes he has been deceived by a fraudulent gang. When Jack finds out, he starts gloating again. He mocks Ken for being a fool, but soon, things change for Ken. Ken is surprised to find that since that day, he has become more and more talkative. In no time during a meal, he can chat incessantly with the waitress, Lily. Ken wants to seize this rare opportunity, so he gathers the courage to ask her out for a meal. He didn't expect Lily to agree immediately. She even gave Ken her contact information. Their date was very successful. They had similar interests, and clicked as they talked more. Lily is cheerful and lively. She subtly changed Ken. They quickly developed a romantic relationship, under the nourishment of love. He became radiant and vibrant. Even Jack noticed his change. Meanwhile, Officer William and his assistant, they discovered Jennings' body in the outskirts. He held 2 small flowers in his hand. They looked at each other in confusion. They couldn't understand what had happened. The scene shifts back to Ken. Lily makes him feel happy every day. Ken has never felt life to be so wonderful. However, some people can't stand others' happiness. That day, Ken caught Jack talking badly about him. This time, he didn't swallow his anger. Ken not only confronted Jack on the spot, he also became extremely aggressive and fierce. He punched Jack, who kept babbling. Ken let out his anger, but this punch was just the beginning for Ken. In the evening, Ken arrived outside Jack's apartment. Jack was using a glass of ice to soothe his injuries. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound. Jack walked towards the back door in confusion. Little did he know, Ken grabbed a can. Crazed Ken beat Jack until he was covered in blood, but he still felt unsatisfied. He even chased after Jack and choked him. Ken strangled a grown man to death. Clearly, that strange worm was to blame. Later, William and his assistant arrived at the crime scene. They recognized the blunt force trauma, the sloppy and violent modus operandi. The crime scene reminded William of the David murder case a few days ago. There must be an unknown connection between these two cases, but Jennings is already deceased. Who could be imitating his crimes? Meanwhile, Ken is standing in front of the mirror. He's practicing how to confess his love to Lily. Sometimes he puts on a pleasing smile. Other times he squeezes out tears to appear sympathetic. Ken looks completely insane. Ken is acting all happy, but suddenly, he starts coughing uncontrollably. He even vomits a pool of blood. At that moment, Lily calls. Apparently, she saw the news about Jack being murdered. Lily is worried that Ken is upset for his friend, so she came specifically to console him, but Ken acts as if nothing happened. He keeps complaining about being hungry and demanding food. He treats the waiter poorly. This upsets Lily, who is also a waitress, but before she could say anything, Ken coughed up blood. Lily said she wouldn't have dinner tonight, and urged Ken to go to the hospital. Little did she know that her words angered Ken. He even accused Lily of flirting with the waiter. Ken's unreasonable behavior completely infuriated her. The two of them had a big fight in the restaurant. Heartbroken, Lily went home to drown her sorrows in alcohol. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking on Lily's door, followed by Ken's drunken yelling. Lily hid inside the house, afraid to open the door. She felt that the person outside the door was so unfamiliar. He seemed like a completely different person. Meanwhile, Ken went crazy after returning home. He drooled and kept slapping himself. He pressed himself against the flickering TV screen. His light-colored pupils reflected an eerie glow. On the other side, Lily had been restless all day. Her colleagues were very concerned about her state. One of them volunteered to take Lily home. Little did they know that Ken was watching everything. Lily was unaware of the danger that was about to unfold. On the way, she was still chatting and laughing with her colleague. She was grateful for his comfort, so Lily hugged her colleague. Ken saw this scene and became furious. He wished he could rush out and kill them both. He acted immediately. As soon as Lily entered the apartment, Ken rushed out and killed Lily's colleague. While Lily was about to go into the bathroom to take a shower, she suddenly heard singing from outside, so she mustered up the courage to check the living room. She didn't know who had turned on the radio. Lily looked at the open door in confusion. Before she could react, Ken pounced on her and grabbed her head. The woman cried and begged for mercy. Unexpectedly, Ken spat out half of a worm. Terrified, Lily grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Ken's shoulder fiercely. At the same time, Myers showed a look of pain. He drank the potion prepared by his assistant. He seemed to sense that something was wrong with the worm, so he sent someone to find Ken. Shortly after, the assistant arrived at Lily's house. He quietly put Ken into a suitcase and took him away. On the other side, William followed the clues. He finally found Ken's house, and he also saw Myers' book on the bookshelf. This psychology book appeared in both killers' house. This definitely wasn't just a coincidence. The female assistant was about to say something to William, but she noticed the detective standing still in a daze. In fact, William was thinking about what his wife said this morning. His wife eventually asked for a divorce. She complained that William never communicated with her. She had enough of this cold attitude. William quickly organized his thoughts. He instructed his female assistant to interrogate Lily. Lily emotionally described the events of the case. She also mentioned that Ken wanted to spit the worm into her mouth, so she had to use the knife to defend herself. After learning more details, William became more suspicious of Myers, because both killers had social anxiety, and they both had been exposed to his psychology courses. William made some efforts, and finally found Myers' hiding place. He may have thought an old man wasn't a threat. He actually went alone to Myers' hideout. William was very aggressive from the beginning. William asked him about his connection to the two killers, but Myers evaded the question. He counter-questioned William if he wanted to learn about the worm. After Myers finished speaking, he disappeared behind the curtain. William hurriedly followed. He went through the corridor into the room. He didn't notice the person hiding in the dark. William noticed the table filled with bottles and jars, and next to the cups were several dead worms. When William was confused, Myers' assistant suddenly appeared. The assistant grabbed William's neck from behind. The assistant dragged William in front of Myers.
We have quite the evening planned for you.
Myers used his life mentor's deceitful techniques again. He said William was full of resentment and repression. He claimed he could help cure William. After Myers finished speaking, he had Ken brought out. Ken was in the same state as Jennings. His eyes were dull, due to the tormented made by the worm. Myers picked up the electric drill once again. The grating mechanical sound filled the air. He aimed the drill at the back of Ken's head and started drilling. Then he used tweezers to extract the worms. Myers held the thick worm and get close. William struggled and shouted desperately. While doing so, he quietly reached for the gun on the assistant's waist. He saw the chubby worm about to be inserted into his ear. Finally, William grabbed the gun. He shot and killed the two assistants. He walked slowly behind Myers and pulled the trigger. Afterward, William safely returned home. He underwent a complete transformation. Not only did he reconcile with his wife, he also became very talkative. The female assistant sensed something was off about him. She pretended to joke and probe William, but when William heard her words, he quietly pulled out his gun. He caught up with the unsuspecting female assistant. Talkative William had a quick temper, and a tendency towards violence. William's behavior completely matches that of being parasitized. Could it be that the worm entered his body? The film ends with an open-ended conclusion. The director didn't reveal the final ending. Whether William was invaded by the worm, the director only ended it with William leaving with a gun. He didn't explicitly state that William was parasitized. The director also left us with endless speculation. If such worms truly exist, and if they don't have any side effects, would anyone be willing to have them placed inside their bodies? If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.